Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and today I have a video courtesy of Smelly Elvis driving the Tier 4 American cruiser, the Pheonix, and things are going to be a little bit different today because rather than being sent as a replay file, this was actually sent as the full MP4 recording of the game, which is really nice in a way because you're actually going to see where Smelly Elvis is aiming, how they're aiming, and all of the in-game interface rather than the replay interface that you'd normally see in most of my non-live videos. The one downside is I'm having to record this all in the preview window of my video editor, which means I may make a mistake here or there on the numbers because the resolution is dropped down so that it can play and record and all that in real time. So right away I noticed one thing that Smelly Elvis does that a lot of people don't do. Well, at least I personally don't, and I haven't seen too many people, and that's, you'll notice their map is rotating. They've got their map set to always up, I believe it is, where wherever you're looking becomes the top of the map. Now, personally, my time in the Navy basically taught me north is always north. You adjust where you're looking to fit that. To the point where flying helicopters and trying to use charts, my instructor believes that, well, it's not really a belief, their preference, I should say, is that you kind of always have your course up, or your GPS course up, and I look at it and it confuses me to no end. Because looking at it, I go, okay, north is the top, so the heading I need is about 200 or something. Whereas in reality, it's course up, so whatever course I'm driving. It's kind of to each their own, and it's just an interesting thing I noticed, and kind of gave me something to talk about at the start of this game, as Smelly Elvis really, drives towards contact. So on to the Pheonix. Now, this is a ship that, at the time, I actually rather enjoyed. I feel it was better than the Tier 4 Japanese cruiser. I'd even argue it's better than Tier 5 Pheonix, or at least the original Pheonix. But since its release, it's kind of fallen to the bottom of the pile as far as measuring sticks go, I feel. The Japanese had their guns improved a little, whereas the Pheonix itself hasn't seen much of an improvement at all, and you've had the addition of the Soviet cruisers, the British now, and honestly, I feel the Pheonix is a little lacking. And what it mostly comes down to is it's a destroyer wanting to be a cruiser. You're in this, that weird category of light cruisers that in the real world really serve a role, but in World of Warships can be incredibly hard to drive and get by with. And people who don't have a lot of experience in the British cruisers, I think, would be aware of this. You can, if you get spotted, you can get one shot. What seems like almost anything, definitely any battleship on the game, can one-shot you without a Citadel. But the benefits you have are really better detection, you're quicker, you're more maneuverable. And in the Pheonix's case, you've got a lot of torpedoes, guns just strewn down both sides of the ship, and a pretty decent rate of fire. Now, right off the bat, having watched a few minutes of gameplay, I noticed Smelly Pheonix likes their HE, and at this tier, it makes sense. The fire damage can really stack up, as anyone who watched my recent Cleveland video saw. But I personally prefer to use AP a little more, and I think it's a general observation. There's a lot of situations that just players in general could be using AP and getting a lot more damage done, but they feel it necessary to use HE instead because they don't think they can get penetrating shots. An example would be right here. I'd personally be all over AP, shooting at a side-on cruiser. You're going to get penetrations if you get the hits. The HE's not going to do a ton. And it's not like you're risking tons of overpens like you might with a battleship on something like a Pheonix. Now against this Kaiser here, yeah, HE is pretty reasonable. The 152s I believe the ship has, you're not going to see a lot of high damage shots. Especially with the arc the American shells do have. You'd think as you start to shoot further out, you'd get a lot more plunging fire, but I've just never truly found that to be the case in the lower tiers. And I think it's just the overall shell velocities and everything don't really lend themselves well to good plunging fire Citadel hits. Now, you'll notice Smelly Elvis's teammate there just smoked him, and I love when destroyers do that. It allows you as a cruiser just to sit and shoot. You don't have to worry about things spotting you, targets coming at you. And ultimately, just lets you do more damage. And there's a lot of people who I've seen in game just claim the British cruisers are completely overpowered. You know, a cruiser was smoking. I personally disagree, because having driven the whole line, sure, there's games where you have the opportunity to sit in your smoke and do a lot of damage. But the smart players out there know how to counter. They know how to get you in a situation where you're screwed. You're caught at close range, 4 or 5 kilometers, and you have nowhere to go. But when you find yourself in a game where no one wants to be that person, or just doesn't think there's anything that can be done, yeah, you're going to get a ton of damage. And you can see Smelly Elvis has a fire going on this Kaiser, and I mean, that's really a good reason to use HE. But with the match now, what, almost 8 minutes gone? They're down a ship, and things aren't looking particularly great. They're a little ahead on points because they had Bravo. They're about to lose it, and honestly, I think their team is in a little bit better of a position. And it mostly comes down to the fact that they're all grouped up at B, whereas Smelly Elvis's team seems to be really spread out. So if that enemy team can really punch into those couple ships in the center of the map, they're going to gain a really big advantage. Oh, excuse me. A little bit tired here, it seems. So right now, the gameplay isn't terribly exciting, but a lot of light cruiser gameplay is you can't afford to get up close and kind of tank damage with your bow the way some of the later cruisers can. Like the Hindenburg and Des Moines at tier 10 are incredibly trolly bow on. Honestly, the Russian and Japanese cruisers are as well. So if you know what you're doing, as you get up in the tiers, and I'd say it's probably about tier 7 and 8 where you can start to go, you know, really go bow in to take some damage. The thing you have to be aware of is there are battleships that can overmatch your armor and just go straight in. So we're now just about halfway through this match, and Smelly Elvis has 53,000 damage, and you can see how quickly it's ticking up between his continued fire and those fires he's lighting. And just like the Cleveland game, that really can benefit you. There's just a huge amount of fire damage slowly ticking away at enemies that you don't really have shots at. For example, if that battleship were to suddenly disappear, it would still be taking damage. And that's why fires and floods are so dangerous to have going. And there's always that fine balance you have to try to negotiate. Do you use your damage control party and risk having more set or running into torpedoes, or you just let it burn and hope your repair party can make up the damage? And, well, there's no right answer. For me personally, so if I've got 2 fires going on my decks with a long duration on them, I'm going to burn that damage control. You have to make sure you get out of, you know, the fire range or firing of that ship that was burning you, though, because otherwise they're just going to relight it. And Smelly Elvis has been doing a really solid job of doing just that. Yet another battleship, the Wyoming, doesn't really seem to be looking his way for one reason or another. And Smelly Elvis is just going to use those guns and just one after the other let them volley at that Wyoming and slowly tick him away. You notice he is getting closer, and that means it's torpedo time. That is one of the things I do love about the Pheonix, is having those torpedoes can really give you an advantage in a lot of situations where you come out from behind an island and get surprised by an enemy. You pop the torpedoes in the water to either hit them or even just steer a ship in a direction that's beneficial to you. And I like Smelly Elvis's attentiveness. He notices a low health destroyer kind of within range, throws the shells, gets the kill, and then swaps right back to the Wyoming that he was working on. And, well, there's no real need because there goes the Wyoming and picks up a double strike, which is certainly a ward that is a little more difficult to get than some, and it's just that time frame. You know, you may do massive damage in a match, get a ton of kills, but it can be hard without the help of torpedoes to get 2 quick kills like that. So things are starting to look a little better for his team. They're up by 2 ships now. They're capping at A, though C is being contested. And the enemy teams kind of end up doing what I was criticizing Smelly Elvis's team for early on. And that was spreading themselves out. And really right here, it's definitely hurting. You know, it was the one battleship, then the Wyoming. They're coming one at a time. Had those 2 battleships shown up at the exact same time against Smelly Elvis and was friendly with him, Smelly Elvis would probably be dead. But because the battleships came, one, and another, and now another ship, he's having the time to just focus them down, get the damage going, and, well, this Kaiser doesn't have much life left on him. There he goes. And another kill. And up to 103,000 damage, which at tier 4 is very impressive. I know a lot of people at tier 10 that would be happy with that kind of damage, and it just shows how strong this game's been. And kind of shows that you don't have to be hyper aggressive to have a good game. I feel too many people think they've got to get in there, in close, mix it up, and really throw themselves away before the game has time to develop. And Smelly Elvis has done a good job of showing that, you know, you just hold them at arm's length, use your gun range towards the outer limits, the maximum range, and just keep volleying. Rely on your skill to win it. You know, charging in, doing 20,000 damage and getting a kill before exploding doesn't really help your team, because ultimately they're down you. And it's my belief that you have to think that you're the difference maker. When you go out there, you have to be. You have to focus on how am I going to do the most damage and have the most fun in this game. And sure, it might seem like fun to just charge in and get in a knife fight, but when you do it too early and you think, oh, I'm going to go after, this cruiser that's all alone, and suddenly it turns into 2 other cruisers, 3 battleships, and a destroyer, and you just get wiped off the face of the earth, it starts to become not very fun anymore. So just holding back a little bit on that gas pedal and giving yourself some time, definitely the way to go sometimes. And for Smelly Elvis, doing just that, had a great game. 244,000 credits, double strike, high caliber, nearly 105,000 damage, 120 shells, 4 kills, a couple floods, just all in all, a solid game. So, no surprise, finishes top of his team, and with 4 kills, definitely carried it. And you you can see Smelly Elvis actually complimenting some other players on his team, and I actually really like to see that. I think people are quick to report, but often a little slow to compliment good play of allies. And when you look at the damage to all those different ships, it's understandable how he got high caliber and how he managed to get all those kills. Sure, the Chester, sorry, I thought it was a destroyer, was only a couple hundred damage, but 25,000 damage almost to a pair of battleships in a tier 4 is very respectable damage, and there's more than that beyond the screen's edge. And at the end of the day, Smelly Elvis walked away with 213,000 credits, 3,000 experience, a good chunk of a commander who's about to get another skill. I would like to thank you for submitting this game. I thought it was well played and maybe not the most exciting, like up in close knife fighting game, but it's how you have to drive the Pheonix, and it's a good example to those who maybe are struggling a little with some of the lower tier ships. To anyone who enjoyed this, please consider giving a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel, getting a little closer to that 500 mark that I've been itching to get to so I can do this next giveaway, which I'm thinking right now is going to be a couple like 1,000 doubloon packs and a premium ship of some sort, but there'll be more to come on that in the future. Anyways, as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you guys later.